Okay, as you can see, we're still here in Frostburg, Maryland. I know this is 3 episodes now of retracing history in Frostburg, but there's so much history in this community that's not really talked about in general American history. I mean, we've been focusing on the railroad, we talked about carriages, and the big bread and butter for Frostburg was coal. It was a coal town. And only recently, I believe it was 2024, the local community got together and organized a memorial for their coal miners. And it seems to be like a larger, not just a simple statue, it seems to be a larger scale plaza to tell the whole story of Frostburg's coal mining history. So naturally, we got to cover that on Retracing History. So I'm heading down to the Frostburg Coal Miners Memorial. You know, a fun way to start off history, talking it through the numbers, blank by the numbers. This is Frostburg, Maryland's mining history with the numbers. In 1838, the year miner John Welsh's demise, our earliest record of date of death. 77, the age of our oldest deceased miner, John Stewart of Frostburg. 713, the number of deceased miners named on this very walkway. So as we go down, you're going to see 713 names listed through the park. 5'3" and 600 pounds, the height and weight of our coal miner statue. 68, the number of deceased miners under the age of 18. 1913, the year Dr. Helen A. Binney became the first superintendent of Miners Hospital. 10, the age of Charles Alexander Coyle and Henry Easel, our youngest deceased miners. Darn. Oh, God, only 10. $1 per hour, the rate per ton of coal paid to miners during the Civil War. 6 weeks, the average length of time it took to sail across the Atlantic in the early 19th century. 2, the number of spouts in a Zayas teapot mining lamp, right over here. The estimated gallons of water drained by the Hoffman Tunnel in the first 24 hours was 9 million. In 2012, the Foundation for Frostburg Coal Miners Memorial Statue Committee mission to collect the history of coal in the Georges Creek Valley and to recognize its economic and cultural impact upon our region, recalling the sacrifices made by those who mined it. In the Memorial Plaza, they have a line of signs that tell the history of not just Frostburg, but all of the state of Maryland's coal industry. And the long and the short of it, how the coal industry got going in Maryland was, well, there's a coal seam underneath the western half of the state. This one right here, we're in Frostburg. Everybody knew about it since the late 18th century, but there really wasn't an efficient means of getting it out of the mountains. We're in Western Maryland. We are in some treacherous mountainous territory. This is part of the longer Appalachian mountain range on the eastern seaboard. So you couldn't really do it by wagon. There was talks for many years about getting a canal to go from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to bridge the gap between the eastern seaboard and the Ohio River Valley. But that, which became the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, that took many decades to construct. It wouldn't, and also that only went to Cumberland. It really wouldn't be until the mid-19th century when you start having railroads come in that you're going to have the big coal boom up here. Although you can see down here, some coal companies were being chartered as early as 1828. And then we talk here about the railroads, which were, for the 19th and early 20th century, the only efficient means of getting coal out of the mountains here in Western Maryland. The first arrival would be the Baltimore and Ohio in 1842, when it entered Cumberland, Maryland. You'd also have the Mount Savage Railroad, which was opened up a few miles down the valley there. You had the Maryland Mining Company's Eckhart branch. All these would connect into the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. And the B&O had a terminus in Piedmont, West Virginia. And in 1853, also the George Creek and Coal and Iron Company's railway. That would go from Lochnacain, Lonaconning to the B&O terminus in Piedmont. In 1857, the Consolidated Coal Company's Cumberland and Pennsylvania Railroad would construct a tunnel underneath Frostburg, and that actually allowed for a circumnavigation of trains. And here you'll get a good map of the rail system that Frostburg sat right in the heart of. You're going to start down here in Cumberland. You come up from Mount Savage, Barrelville. We're going under Frostburg, going down through Midland, Lonaconning, Moscow, Moscow, Russia, yeah, it goes into Russia briefly, going over to Western Ports, then down to Piedmont, West Virginia, across the state border, then going down, you could take down some of the B&O, I believe this was B&O trackage down for here, coming up the Potomac River, back in the Cumberland. So this system that was established in the latter half of the 19th century was crucial for the coal industry booming in Western Maryland. Now, Frostburg, Maryland sits upon the Pittsburgh coal seam, which sometimes is just called the Big Vein. It was a big coal vein. And it made it a highly sought-after commodity, as the sign says. By the mid-19th century, you're going to have all sorts of competition between different companies, not just coal companies, but rail companies as well, trying to vie for control over all the aspects of the coal industry. And you're going to see here talks here about the Consolidation Coal Company, which was organized for the purpose to bring about a reasonable for the barons in charge, reasonable structure with a profitable price. And that eventually would become your Consol Energy that you hear about later on. Consol acquired 55% of the Georges Creek coal companies, and later all the railroads that serviced this region. The attempt to create a monopoly was never realized, however, because a few large companies and many small ones managed to withstand the challenge. Consol would operate exclusively in Allegheny County, Maryland until 1900 and proved to be the dominant company in the coal industry. By 1927, they were the largest producer of bituminous coal in the entire United States. At its peak production, this region was producing over 5 million tons of coal annually in 1907. By the way, that's the same year of the Dar Mine disaster. And then you would see a spike in demand during the Great War, but following that, you're going to see prices plummeting. You're going to get a lot of your labor unrest, miners wanting not just wages, safe working conditions, please. That would be nice. The coal company said no, and then there was a lovely little event known as the Battle of Blair Mountain. And then because of all this unrest due to the plummet of the value of coal, not to mention the Great Depression, that really was the collapse for a lot of coal companies, not just here in Western Maryland, but throughout the United States. I said right there about the Great Depression, 50% of industrial purchases plummeted. They lost half of that during the Great Depression. And really, it was only the Second World War that really kind of gave one last shot of adrenaline to the coal industry in this capacity. It will extend its life through the 1940s. In 1944, Consolidation would pull out of Allegheny County, and former Consol properties were sold to the Jenkins family. Underground coal mining along Georges Creek would never return to its peak operations. The introduction of surface mining started in the 60s and hastened the end of the underground mining industry here in Allegheny County, Maryland. And this is a very interesting sign. It kind of shows you the power behind the throne, that being the coal throne in Allegheny County, Maryland. The discovery of rich deposits at the prized Pittsburgh seam attracted the attention of some of America's most prominent and wealthy families. Among the directors of the Lonaconning Ocean Coal Mining and Transportation Company was Edward Cunard, son of Samuel Cunard, founder of the Cunard Ship Line, which, if you're a Titanic history buff, you recognize Cunard. That's the rival ocean liner fleet to White Star Line. And Cunard also owned the RMS Lusitania, which sunk by a World War I German U-boat back in 1915. You're also going to have William Henry Aspinwall, founder of the Pacific Mail Steamship Company. You're going to have August Belmont, whose son August II will go on to build the Belmont Park in New York, site of the third leg of horse racing's Triple Crown. So you got all the names there. You got Cunard, you got Aspinwall, you got Franklin Delano Roosevelt's father, James Roosevelt, and FDR's maternal grandfather were directors of the Consolidation Coal Company. Yes, Consolidation Coal Company. They were manned by the Roosevelt family, and that's, of course, the leading coal company in the early 20th century here in Allegheny County, Maryland. The power behind the throne for that was FDR's relatives. It's all coming together now, isn't it? In the early 1900s, you're going to have the Roosevelts, the Delanos, and the Shrivers all being prominent members of the board of directors for the Union Mining Company at Mount Savage. FDR's uncle, Warren Delano III, was the principal director of the Union Mining Company. Again, all that just a few miles down the road here. I got to do a whole episode on Mount Savage. That town is one of the best kept secrets in Western Maryland. Henry Shriver II was the superintendent of the Union No. 1 mine in Mount Savage. Henry's nephew, Robert Sargent Shriver Jr., later married Eunice Kennedy, sister of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy. 4 generations of the Shriver family are buried in the Rose Hill Cemetery in Cumberland. So, the power behind the throne for Allegheny County, Maryland's coal boom, Belmonts, Aspinwalls, Delano Roosevelts, Shrivers, and there's even a Kennedy connection. And here we have a sign here about the people that came to Frostburg, Maryland and Allegheny County, Maryland to mine the coal out. Because it wasn't the coal operators that were doing that. No. It was these folks. Folks that would come from all walks of life. They would come from England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Italy, Russia, Poland, Yugoslavia, other parts of Europe. You're also going to have African-American miners. They're going to make their way up here and get involved into some of the mining operations. So it wasn't just all coal communities become true melting pots, if you were, because basically the coal company is paying bottom dollar, and whoever's willing to work the hardest for the lowest dollar and will keep their mouth shut up about it, they were willing to come and do the hard work. So you had all sorts of different groups of people come over here in the late 19th and early 20th century. I'm running short on time. There's a few more stories I want to read from the signs here. So if I don't get to them all, I apologize. If you ever have the chance to come here to Frostburg, Maryland in person to visit this Miners Memorial Park, it is incredible. Maryland. This is the story of George and Eleanor Fair. They had been married for about a decade when on September 20th, 1900, George failed to show up for lunch, and that's because he ended up dying in the mines. And he left behind his wife and 7 children. And it reads a little about here what became of the Fair widow and children. Eleanor and her 7 children lived in a house on Calla Hill near Dutch Hollow. You get all sorts of funny names for neighborhoods when you get into the coal towns. The home may have been owned by her brother, and Ella took in laundry and cleaned for others. She also cleaned for businesses, one of which was the Mount Savage Bank, again, a few miles down that way, down the valley. This was a time when children often worked to help support their families, so Chris, being the oldest one, worked in the mines, walking in his father's footsteps. Dulcia was the oldest daughter, worked as a domestic for a Dr. Price and his wife in Frostburg. The family would plant a garden with vegetables that were canned and stored for the winter. They owned chickens, a cow. The younger children would pick the berries from surrounding woods. Citizens from the town looked after one another, and when someone would butcher a cow or a hog, Eleanor's family were often the ones to be gifted the meat because they don't have the lead breadwinner. I mean, everybody was becoming their own breadwinner in the wake of a father being killed. Eleanor received money from various fraternity groups, such as the Order of Odd Fellows. These men would pledge 10 cents and 25 cents a month to help support her family. Using material that people gave her, Eleanor, an experienced seamstress, made quilts, and she would sell them to the community. So all this different ways just to barely break even. The whole Fair family had to do this because of the loss of George Fair. William Ross Wallace, in his poem, "The Hand That Rocks a Cradle is the Hand That Rules the World," praises motherhood as the preeminent force for change in the world. Unknowingly, Eleanor gifted her children the values of hard work, resourcefulness, living within your means, and treating others as you would like to be treated. The Fair children married, had good jobs, and blessed her with 25 children. In later life, Eleanor lived with her son-in-law and daughter, Frank and Arvada Ball, until her death on October 11th, 1938. And Eleanor Fair's legacy shines a light on the hundreds of widows and families whose lives revolved around the dangers of underground mining. And here we have another story of a miner that lost his life here in Mountain Maryland's coal fields. Leonard Sinclair Dawson, who was born in Westernport. Leonard was one of 12 children belonging to Henry and Eliza Jane Dawson. At 2:45 p.m. on March 29th, 1918, Leonard was working in the Consolidation's Coal Company's Tyson No. 7 mine in Klondike, Maryland, with his 16-year-old son, Forrest. Leonard was standing at the back end of a coal car when a large rock fell from the roof and landed on the inside front of the car. The back end rose suddenly, and Leonard's neck was broken when his head was caught between the frame of the car and the roof. Leonard was laid to rest in Philo Cemetery in Westernport. Nettie was left to fend for herself and their 5 children. In the 1920 census, the family was living along the Carlos branch of the C&P Railroad. Forrest Dawson was working as a driver in the underground coal mines to provide for his mother and 4 younger sisters, Delma, Laura, Althea, and Doris. And Doris was only 5 years old at the time. It's likely that Forrest was working in the same mine when he witnessed his father's death 2 years earlier. Somehow, the Dawson family endured. On July 24, 1956, 38 years after the death of her husband, Nettie was buried beside her Leonard in Philo's cemetery. Forrest carried a heavy burden as he stepped into the role of family breadwinner. Only time would diminish the pain of witnessing his father's brutal death in Tyson No. 7. The memory of that tragedy would remain with him forever. Forrest chose to trade the mountains of Western Maryland for the hills of Los Angeles, California. Hopefully that's where he was able to live a life of peace and tranquility. Upon his death in 1989, Forrest was brought back to his native Western Maryland and reunited with his parents in Philo Cemetery in Westernport, Maryland. The benches inside this pavilion, they're also dedicated in honor of individuals who were related to the coal industry here in Frostburg. This is in loving memory of Meshach Tobias Preston, son of Meshach and Elias Preston, a proud member of Company No. 1, 2nd Regiment Maryland Infantry, Potomac Home Brigade. He was soon after his discharge, and he took the hand of a young Scottish transplant named Annabella Greenhorn to be his bride. They had been married for 20 years when, on October 2nd, 1886, a fall of top coal in the Potomac mine in Barton crushed the life out of the 46-year-old. Anna was left behind to raise their 10 children. Their 15-year-old son, Charles, helped carry his father's broken body back home. Heartbroken over the death of her husband, Anna suffered further when her father, John Greenhorn, perished in the same mine just less than a month later. Through the skillful hands of Anna's midwife duties, the arduous work of his coal mining sons, and the domestic services of his daughters, Meshach's family persevered. Meshach, I guess. I don't know why I keep going Meshach. Apologies, Mr. Preston. Meshach was laid to rest in Laurel Hill Cemetery in Moscow, Maryland, where Anna joined him in 1908. And this is cool. This is a group photo of miners at mine number 10, Tyson Seam, Eckhart Mines, which is just a little south of Frostburg. And this was part of the Consolidation Coal Company. And we got all the names listed there. I'm glad that it seems almost everybody's identified in this photograph. And walking from the statue, the memorial descends into a mock-up of a mine shaft. You know, a lot of your local town memorials are usually just a simple honor roll of wall of names, which are highly important. I love seeking them out. This is going above and beyond the call of duty. I congratulate the people of Frostburg, Maryland for what they were able to do to not just turn this into a wall of names, remember those lost in the industry to build their community, but turn it into an outdoor museum, essentially. Now, Frostburg is nowadays well known for its college and has a very important role in Maryland education. So we'll read a little about here. In the book, The Best Dressed Miners, Catherine Harvey's analysis of local mining communities highlighted the fact that residents wanted more from life than labor wages. So this led to the creation of civic clubs, church organizations, patriotic assemblies, sport teams, and educational endeavors that were integral to the best dressed miner culture in Allegheny County, Maryland. A shining example is the coal miner support of Frostburg's Normal School No. 2, now known as Frostburg State University. The suggestion for the school came from the editor of the Frostburg Mining Journal, who penned an open letter in 1898 recommending that State Normal School No. 2 for teacher training be built in Frostburg. The idea was not well received, as opposition came from Cumberland residents who felt the county seat was the rightful place for the institution. So yeah, we're kind of really on the western fringes of the county. We're way up there. I'm going to use that term. We're way up there in the boonies, especially if you're in the late 19th century. So they put the state university here in the middle of coal country. That's some sort of declaration there. The state legislature was not warm to the idea either, even though Frostburg citizens had lobbied for the school. An amendment to a general appropriations bill was made and made its way for proceedings and provided $20,000 for a school building. No money, however, was actually given to buy the land. So they were like, oh yeah, here's the money, but you ain't gonna find anybody to sell the land to you. When a site became available, the issue quickly became one of money. How could a sum of $2,000 be raised? The coal mining community and civic groups came to the rescue. So again, you're talking about all these close-knit communities. They're all, your civic clubs, your church congregations, are all pitching in to ensure a better future for future generations. The coal mining community would ultimately come together. They would ask miners for contributions at their work shifts, 25 cents, 50 cents, maybe even $1. Within 2 weeks, most of the funds were provided to pay for the land. The names of the miners and others who contributed were listed in the Frostburg Mining Journal and sealed in the cornerstone of Normal School Number 2 when it was constructed. The local mining community celebrated when the new school opened for students in the fall of 1902. Like I mentioned, that'd be kind of the basis for the Frostburg State University that is still going on today. The Great Allegheny Passage is now what Frostburg, Maryland is probably known for. It's a key stop along this very popular biking and hiking trail, which goes from Cumberland, Maryland to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And actually, it's part of a larger biking and hiking system from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh. The first leg of that is the C&O Canal towpath from D.C. to Cumberland, and then you follow the old right-of-way of the Western Maryland Railroad from Cumberland up to Connellsville, Pennsylvania, and then from Connellsville, you're in the footsteps of the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie Railroad into downtown Pittsburgh. Anyways, the reason I'm telling you all this, that is the actual Great Allegheny Passage. If you want to see the Frostburg Mining Memorial, you have to go up the switchback here. There's a big parking lot down here. Make the switchback, come up here, and you can bring your bike up here as well. And right here is the Frostburg Coal Miners Memorial. If you just hop a little bit further, then you can get a peek, if it's the right day, of the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad parked and ready for its return trip. Humans have this hubris that the term future automatically means better than what came before it. And while that may be true with innovations make our lives more simpler and more convenient, that doesn't always translate with the character of an individual. From coming here to the Frostburg Miners Memorial, I've discovered this incredible story of human perseverance and sacrifice from the men, women, and children that some of them were born here, many of them moved over here and struggled in the mines to make a living. I hope future generations will carry with them the same character that these people in Allegheny County, Maryland's mines once had. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for watching this edition of Retracing History. If you want to follow us on future adventures, the first thing you need to do is hit the like button, because when you hit the like button, you let the TubeU algorithm know you do want to use social media to get an edumerication. The second thing you need to then do is subscribe here to Readout Productions. By doing that, you'll be the first notified when a new video like Retracing History comes out, or one of my other crazy experiments in video form. And if you want to go the extra mile to support us, you can go to our Ko-fi page, links in the description below. You can join the membership program known as the Garrison. A small monthly fee gets you early access to select videos, scripts to select videos, behind the scenes footage and images, and I'm trying to build up a few more bonuses as the years go on. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.